Hey YouTube, I'm Lucky, and today I'm going to bring you a guide on how to beat the final boss of the new raid, Garden of Salvation. Now, just for a quick backstory, this is day 2 of the Garden of Salvation that came out yesterday, and me and my team beat it on the first day. We beat it within the contest modifier. We got ourselves the very ugly 24-hour emblem, but it's the 24-hour emblem, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. I spent about 15 hours in this raid encounter, I believe was the time in total. So it took me a long time to beat it, a lot longer than a lot of others. But in the process, I learned every single mechanic in and out, through and through, and I feel very confident in bringing you this raid guide and helping you all to beat the final boss in the most efficient manner possible. So the first thing I want to go over is weapon loadouts that you're going to want for your team. Currently, the best weapon loadouts that we found for success was to have 4 of our teammates have Izanagi's Burden with Catalyst in their primary slot, 4 Recluses with minor spec, and then 4 Wendigo grenade launchers with boss spec on them. So those were the 4 people that would be going back and forth through the teleportations, and I'll cover that in just a second. And the other 2 people were running double snipers, so a sniper in the kinetic slot, an energy recluse, and a Whisper of the Worm in the power ammo slot. Now, the sniper in the kinetic slot was best if it had firing line. The new sniper that came out with Eris Morn was the preferred one. That one can roll firing line, and that will add a nice little damage buff. But if you don't have that, it's totally okay. You don't have to use firing line. You could use something else. It just is the most powerful sniper for the job that we were trying to get done. As far as subclasses go, we had 1 hunter, which was myself, and then we had 2 titans and 3 warlocks. Honestly, the most powerful subclass for this raid would again be Warlock, even though the Lunafaction boots were nerfed. It's still definitely the most powerful subclass. Keeps you alive so much longer, and when you're trying to stay alive and when you're trying to figure out new encounters, it definitely helps to be able to stay alive as long as possible. So I would recommend for a team chemistry build to try to have maybe 4 Warlocks, 1 Titan, 1 Hunter. 2 Titans wasn't too bad though, because the Weapons of Light bubble was very helpful for adding a little more damage. So maybe 2 Titans, maybe 4 Warlocks. I was the 1 Hunter, and even though I do love my Hunter, it definitely wasn't necessarily that helpful. I do have a good amount of survivability. I can go invis when necessary. Run certain roles with that. I was using Orpheus rigs the entire time. Perhaps I could have swapped to Celestial Nighthawk maybe for a little more damage, but for the most part, my Hunter, I really felt like I was lacking. I kind of had to really rely on the help from my teammate for healing rifts, for Wells of Radiance, for healing grenades, and if I had just been on a Warlock myself, I would have honestly felt a lot better in the raid. I thought my Hunter would be very useful, and I don't know, it probably was in some ways, because obviously dropping a ton of orbs with Orpheus Rig and getting tethers back decently fast was pretty good at times. I'm not saying the Hunter was absolutely worthless, but it definitely could have been better, I feel like, if I was playing as a Warlock. So now that you've got your team build out together, the loadout that you're going to use, you don't have to use those exact loadouts, but those are the ones that I would recommend to you. Now we're going to split off into teams of 3, and so you're going to have 3 assigned to one of the confluxes. One of them is orange, and one of them is white. One says light and dark. You can call them orange, white, light, dark, black, white, whatever you want to call them. We were just calling them orange and white. Because that's what they most distinguishably looked like. So, and it was really easy to not mess that up because, they just looked very obviously orange and white. And so what you want to have is 2 of the people that are using Wendigo go to one, and two to the other, and then obviously Whisper to one in each. And then you're going to split up the roles a little bit. So when the encounter first starts, what's going to happen is you're going to clear a few ads there, and you're going to protect these confluxes, and the ground behind you is going to get destroyed, and you're going to want to work with the teammate that is left to stay inside to help rebuild that. I'm giving you this from the perspective of someone that goes through the portal, so that's going to be my perspective. The portal is activated by shooting either his leg or his shoulder, and when you go through that portal, you kill a set of ads, and each ad will drop a mote. More powerful ads will drop more motes. You want to collect exactly 10 motes, and you only want to send 1 person in the portal, ideally. This is the most efficient manner. We did try sending 2 in at one point in time, and it did help with survivability, but it was definitely a less efficient way of doing things. And the more inefficient you are at doing this raid, the more the platforms dissipate from the boss, making the entire encounter so much more hectic. So you want to do things in a very timely and very organized fashion. If things start to fall apart, if shit starts to hit the fan, essentially things go really bad, really south, really fast. It's very hard to recover because these platforms are hard to get back because of the tethering and the Vex milk that hurts you as you damages you as you stand on it. So one person will go through. On either side, you'll shoot the leg, you'll shoot the shoulder. You'll have that designated person go through, and so you'll have 2 people to each conflux. And when that person collects 10, they will call out saying, "Hey, bring me back," or "shoot leg" or "shoot shoulder" is my preferred call out. And when they do so, then you will head through the portal yourself if you are a portal person. If not, then you will be focusing on shooting the Cyclops. One will spawn on the left, one will spawn on the right. Each person is assigned a Cyclops. That person will stay inside the encounter and focus entirely on killing ads, clearing ads, and killing those Cyclops, whereas the other 2 people will rotate back and forth going inside the portals. Now, when you go inside those portals, be careful on how you push the ads. They can definitely be extremely lethal. I was using a Wendigo because the Wendigo worked out really well because I would shoot a pile of ads and it would kill one, and then I could swap to my recluse and it would blind all the others. So then I could use the charged recluse to shoot the ads that were not blinded, and after shooting the ads that were not blinded, I could then take my charged recluse over to the ads that were still either blinded or reeling or half health from getting shot by the Wendigo, and finish the rest of them off. After collecting 10 motes, I would call out to my teammates saying, "Hey, bring me back," or "shoot the leg," and then they would shoot the leg and bring me back. I then bank the motes, which gives you the empowerment so that you can shoot the ads with shields. What you want to do when you're shooting the ads with shields is you can try to full kill all of them, but in order to help your teammates or allow your teammates to help you better, it's best to shoot all of their shields off. So you want to sort of spray down, putting a bullet or 2 on each of the ads, so that way all of their shields are dropped. Every time you are brought back, the portal is opened, so you and your teammate that go through the portal are on a sort of relay system where you're constantly going through the portal one at a time, and you're always going in and out of the portal. It's very important to keep this cadence, so that way you always have someone who's empowered to take off the shields, and this will also, the rotations will work out really well for rebuilding platforms and such. Once you clear ads, you can rebuild the platforms. And one thing that's important to keep in mind is that even if a platform that's not convenient to you is destroyed, like one that's way in the back, it's important to rebuild it if there's nothing going on, because if you don't, it will stack against you, and eventually if you only have the 2 platforms that you do like standing on, those will start to dissipate, and as you have to rebuild them, they will continue to get destroyed over and over and over again, and it will make the run absolutely chaotic and insane. You do not want that to happen. You want to rebuild the platforms that are even in the back, so that way you have something to rely on, and that way the boss destroys platforms that aren't as favorable to you, so that way you can stand on something when you're doing damage and putting in as many damage phases as you possibly can. Now, one thing that's important to keep in mind is that there are goblins that are constantly pushing those confluxes, and if they get too close to them, they sacrifice themselves. And if they do so, it's not anything you have to completely worry about. Just understand that you will have to go back into the portal and pick up another 10 motes. That was the exact cadence that we used, and it worked every single time. I don't know the exact number of motes you have to grab. I'm just assuming 10 counts as 1 goblin sacrifice. But if you were to have multiple goblin sacrifice, you might have to pick up more than 1 set of motes. And keep in mind that if you're doing the relay system, that you would have to do another rotation. Instead of 3 rotations, which is the standard, you should have to do 3 rotations of 10 motes each. After 3 rotations, the conflux will actually fill in the middle. You'll see that it has a sort of transparent cube in there that fills in. Once that's full, then you're totally good to go. You got to make sure to not have any more sacrifices, or that can go away. But you want to begin to do damage phase once both of those come through. Ads will spawn, you'll shoot a giant Hydra, and then you will begin to tether. Now, one thing that's extremely important that I want to cover in this is tethering. A lot of people have been complaining on Twitter and elsewhere about tethering being bugged or being a problem and hating tethering, and I actually have a very different opinion on that. I actually really like the tethering. Maybe I just didn't experience any bugs in the tethering, but I experienced a ton of bugs in this game and so many other things. I mean, goblins were teleporting inside floors. All sorts of crazy stuff was happening. My teammates were teleporting all around. We had all kinds of bugs, but as far as it came to tethering, it actually works really, really well. The key to tethering is to stand at the exact distance where the tether turns red. You want it to be red. And the reason why is because you can't step any further when it's red. And you also need to keep in mind that if you're standing above Vex milk that's poisoning you that you want to constantly jump, just doing a single jump over and over again or keeping your elevation very low will work extremely effective. It'll keep you away from damaging yourself while standing in that, and it will not break the tether. It's totally okay to constantly jump. It does not break the tether. The tether might look like it's deactivating or something, but it's not actually deactivating. The distance on the tether is very far. If you're at an orange link, you might be able to deactivate it by doing a completely, vertical jump that's really high in the air. So be careful of that. Maybe just jump when you have like the tether still blue. But the tether, for the most part, after 15 hours, almost worked perfectly every single time. It just took us a while to figure out and understand how the mechanics worked properly. And once I understood how the mechanics of the tether worked, it was really, really easy to never, ever, ever mess up the tether. I mean, I don't even think after like the first 2 hours of being in this raid boss counter, I think after the first 2 hours, we never messed up one single tether. We never had one bug or one issue. We had a lot of other bugs and issues, but nothing tether related specifically. So keep that in mind when you're using the tether. Make sure you're connecting to your teammates and trying to push the maximum distance. You can reach a lot of distance with that tether. You could rebuild platforms so much farther than you could actually think, as long as you are pushing the boundaries and making sure to maximize the distance with that tether. It's totally okay. Maximize the distance with those tethers. Jump in the air. It's totally fine. Does not mess with the tether. I think a lot of people were just really afraid of jumping in the air, thought that maybe that was breaking the tether. A lot of people didn't know that the redness on the tether didn't mean that it was deactivating. It actually meant that it was at the maximum length, and that's about the point where you should stop moving forward. And the other issues are that the tether will activate when you shoot it, so you need to look up and shoot it, but only have one person shooting it. Have a designated shooter to activate the start of the tether. Otherwise, it will turn off and turn on, off and on, off and on, off and on, and it will get extremely annoying and extremely buggy. So just be very mindful of that. Just have one person be the designated tether activator. All right, so now that you've done all of this, I'm going to rapidly go into the last part of this video so that way I can wrap this up and you guys can dive into this boss encounter and totally dominate this new Garden of Salvation raid boss. So you have sent through your portal guys one at a time, and they each have gotten 10. And so they've brought back 30 motes, so 30 for each side, and you did not allow any sacrifices to happen on those confluxes, so everything is Gucci. The light side is lit up, the dark side is lit up. It'll actually proc in the bottom left and let you know that it is like teeming with energy or something like that in the bottom left. So let you know that everything's totally full. You can actually look at the conflux itself, and it will be completely full, and you'll see that there is like a filled void in there, and that's how you'll know that you have done everything right, and it's time to begin damage phase. So after you've cleared all the ads and the Hydra, the damage phase will begin. There'll be an orb in the middle. What you'll do is you'll see is it the white orb or the orange orb, and you will connect your teammates to it. It'll probably take 3 or 4 teammates to get this done. You could do it with 3 if you're extremely efficient. Maybe 4 is the better way to go, so that way it's nice and easy in case you have to jump over the Vex milk and feeling a little nervous about it. Maybe there's a hobgoblin or a goblin running around shooting you a little bit. So we did 4, and once that activates, then the damage phase begins. And what you want to do is probably use a sniper. Izanagi's Burden seems to be the absolute best for DPS, so that's what I was using primarily, just charging up all 4 shots, hitting him in his crit. His crit is very particular in how it receives damage. Sometimes it doesn't proc properly, so make sure you're just shooting in the absolute dead center. Don't shoot anywhere else. Take a second if you're shooting an Izanagi's Burden to make sure you're in dead center, because that is a huge damage difference from hitting a crit to hitting a non-crit shot on the boss. You want to hit the crit. You need to make sure to hit dead center. This boss is entirely one-phaseable if you're using Izanagi's Burden and another legendary sniper and machine gun ammo or grenade launcher. It's entirely possible to one-phase this boss. It's already been done. But obviously if you're in there with your friends and you've never beaten it before, you're not trying to one-phase it, so just keep that in mind. The first phase and the second phase are no different from each other. As long as you do them in an orderly fashion, you should be able to go through 4 phases potentially, as my team did in order to beat it on the first day. It took us 4 phases. After the third phase, we got him down to an absolute sliver, and we were panicking and freaking out, and we were making sure that no one died and blew it because we had it in the bag. We just needed to put 1 bullet on him, and he was going to die. And so you can definitely do this in 3 or 4 phases if necessary, but most teams, I believe, will probably get this done in 2 phases if you're good, or 3 phases if necessary, and maybe 4 if you're absolutely desperately mess up on a few things. It might take you 4 phases at this point, but really shouldn't be that bad now that contest modifier is gone. The last thing that I'll mention is that after you activate the first damage phase, it's very important to go over to the other conflux, to have 3 designated teammates go to the other conflux and tether that side to the boss. And it's important that the damagers stay on the side where the initial tether was so that they do not get tethered by the other team. And what they're doing is essentially they're going to flinch the boss so that you can do 2 damage phases instead of 1. As far as we understand right now, that's the maximum that you can do is 2 damage phases. So if you can get the boss to flinch, the first damage phase will be only 3 teammates shooting at him, and the second damage phase will be all 6 of you shooting at him, and that will optimize your DPS and hopefully allow you to easily 2 phase or 3 phase the boss. Maybe 1 phase if you're absolutely insane. The other thing to keep in mind is that debuffs do not seem to work on the boss, whether you're using your grenade from that artifact debuff by throwing your nade on stuff, or whether you're using a tether. Debuffs do not seem to apply to the boss. I was shooting a tether. I was hitting him directly with the tether over and over and over again, and I never noticed an increase in damage. So I'm assuming that just no debuffs work on the boss. He just doesn't receive debuffs. So keep that in mind if you have any crazy titans out there trying to run up and shoulder charge him, or if your friend's trying to hit him with a tractor cannon. I believe that that does not do any extra damage, so you don't need to do that. Don't worry about any debuffs. And that's pretty much it. We'll cover everything you need to know when it comes to beating this raid. If you have any questions or comments, please ask me. Comment down below on this video and I will answer them. Also, you can tag me on Twitter. I will answer any questions on Twitter. And of course, if you can come ask me on my live stream, twitch.tv/lucky10p. I am going to be raiding a bunch this week. I'll be playing the raid, probably trying to get the new raid exotic that came out. There's a quest for it, and doing a lot of crazy fun stuff. I'm really enjoying the new season, and hope to see you all on the live stream. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.